Welcome to the ClassicalU podcast. ClassicalU is a training platform with over 100 self-paced online courses and new content added regularly. We customize and brand learning pathways, serving schools, as well as offering individual subscriptions to parents, teachers, and school leaders. Visit ClassicalU.com to learn more. I'm the director, Jesse Hake. On this show, I interview our course presenters as well as authors and leaders in classical education, talking about running a great classroom, teaching the human and fine arts, the great books. We're delighted to have you listening. Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to be recording with you, Kim. Kim Warman has just completed a new course on ClassicalU in an exciting new format that's inviting teachers right into her classroom with video recording outside of her studios in her school. And I'm so grateful for her pioneering this new recording format on ClassicalU and developing a course with us, Launching Your Classical Classroom. She's giving help, practical boots on the ground kind of support to grammar school teachers, particularly new teachers who are setting up their classroom for the first time, and really just giving an orientation and a set of recommendations that's going to guarantee peaceful, delightful time with all the littles coming in at the beginning of a new school year. So thank you, Kim, so much for being willing to record this course with us and this podcast episode. I have that you are a Hillsdale College grad. You attended Classical Christian School yourself before Hillsdale, and you've been teaching now for a number of years, and you're the lower school dean at Coram Deo Academy, Carmel, Indiana. Mm-hmm. And what type of characterization would you give to your own classical education, before college? Because you're one of those second-generation classical educators, is that right?
Yes, I am. I call myself a unique breed when I'm talking to parents or meeting them, that I was blessed to be able to go to a school that was not classical in elementary and then classical for 7th through 12th grade, because I actually really noticed the difference. As much as I was really wanting to go to public school and I was all signed up to go and pushing for it, and then my siblings really helped step in and go, you know what, I really think you need to go to this classical school, which is where they were working, so they were a little biased. But it actually worked out really well. I remember going into 7th grade, and I had to take a Latin class, and I didn't even know what an adverb was. And I didn't know any of my parts of speech, really. And I was supposedly taking that class in 6th grade, and I'm supposed to know all the parts of speech in 7th grade in Latin. And so I had to do tutoring, and it was just this really humbling experience for this kid who was type A, got all good grades, and then I go to classical school, and everything's just erupted. But at the same time, I spent my years there and took all the humanities classes, Socratic discussion, doing high-level algebra and calculus and physics on computers. And it was a really neat experience for me, and I didn't appreciate it until I was in my last couple years and seeing all the connections between classes and books that I'd read connecting to scripture that I knew, and doing calligraphy and art class. Like, just all of it was such a special experience for me. And then to go on to Hillsdale and experience the joy and wonder of Hillsdale and everything that it is, meeting my husband there, and going to teach at a Barney charter school in Las Vegas for 2 years was an experience of itself, another different place and situation. Yeah. And then landing at an ACCS classical Christian school here in Indiana, which has been just my favorite experience of all. And I just love being where I am, and I feel like it's a perfect fit for me. But all the places that I had been kind of gave me the experience to feel like I can lead in a really good way. And of course, glory to God that I am able to do any of this, but I just feel like God put all these different experiences on my path to take me to where I am today and be able to bless other teachers that are entering the field with what I didn't have or what I've learned along the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's a very full-orbed, kind of experience going all the way back. So it doesn't sound like your sixth or seventh grade self would have expected that you might be spending, the bulk of your adult life in classical education.
Oh no, I wanted to be a cheerleader in public school. That's where I was motivated for, and I'm glad that didn't work out.
So your middle school self had some other ambitions, but
Yeah.
it won you over in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. The Barney Charter experience, you really bring, there's a lot of debate and kind of it's even a bit contentious in kind of classical education circles, faith-based versus public charter, but you really do kind of bring a very full-orbed set of experiences and backgrounds, and that I think does prepare you really well to, just engage teachers coming, to classical education from various perspectives and backgrounds that, people do come from. People are, classical education is growing, and I'm just hearing more and more from schools that they're hiring from a lot of different backgrounds, and it's so helpful to be able to kind of meet people where they are and, welcome and share a little bit of your story when it connects in one way or another. You speak warmly of Hillsdale. What are some of the highlights from a Hillsdale education? Your degree there was in classical education English.
Well,
okay.
actually,
Did they have a track that was kind of teacher preparing?
So the way it works there is they still want you to major in something other than education. So I actually don't know currently if this is the case, but I believe it's still. I was I was an English major, and I had a classical education minor.
Okay.
And I spent extra time at the academy affiliated with Hillsdale doing training. So I went above and beyond what my requirements were because I really wanted to get more experience. And so, Hillsdale is just an incredible place, and I can't believe I was blessed to be able to go there. I helped do recruiting at college fairs, and boy, the requirements today versus back in the early 2000s and 2010s when I went there it's come a long way. It's getting a lot harder to get in. So I feel very blessed that I was able to, and I had amazing professors that worked one-on-one with me and helped me achieve what I wanted to, and also study things that just interested me. Like I, as a, 19, 20-year-old, was interested in T.S. Eliot, and I took a 400-level night course with this lady who studied T.S. Eliot in Europe, and she ended up being my advisor, and we studied The Wasteland, and, I cannot think of the other one right now, but I still have this beautiful old copy of The Wasteland with my notes. Like the pages are falling apart. Yeah. And I have all the notes she gave me. And once in a while I'll open it up and go, oh my goodness, I was doing this. I can't remember what she was talking about. But I remember being totally enraptured by it in these night classes. So
they would pull together these kinds of opportunities at Hillsdale. Yeah, and you came out of your high school classical with that love, even coming into your freshman year. At Hillsdale. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Would your time in the academy have overlap with David Diener at all?
I believe he was there as there was, I think, a principal who was leaving, and he replaced him for a short time. But I didn't have a lot of interaction with him. It was more the teachers I worked with. But I know the name. I know the face.
So that was kind of like a student teaching piece you were doing as a college student.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. A number, there's not a lot of four-year college, connected. There are more master's degree programs now connected to kind of classical education and teaching.
Yeah.
But Hillsdale is definitely one of the trailblazers. There's a couple others that have like a minor in classical teaching or something at the undergrad level. But that's neat. Yeah. Really, really great background. And, so you've been at Coram Deo for how many years now? And you're also wearing multiple hats, which is common at faith, Christian classical schools, librarian. What are some of the various roles you've had?
Oh, okay. Well, this is my 7th year. I finished there. Yeah, that's right. And I I'm now the dean of the lower school, which is exciting, but I'm still teaching fourth grade next year, which I love. I taught third grade for a number of years. That was kind of my primary passion, and just needed something different besides Roman and Greek history. I was getting a little bored of ocean animals, and now I do medieval, which is more fun. But anyway, yeah, I do that. I'm the school librarian, so I actually added a high school library or upper school library to our school.
Cool.
Used an old office space and bought IKEA bookshelves and used lists that were recommended to me from various book sources on how to grow the upper school library. We already had a small selection. The lady who started it before me really did a nice job, and so I've just continued to grow it and engage our upper school and still manage the lower school library and have little gals in fifth grade who help me check in the books and organize things.
That's great.
But it's really been a blessing. Yeah, blessing to our school. I do spelling bee, and I've done speech meet organizing like the event. We didn't do anything for Veterans Day or 9/11 till I came. We didn't even say the pledge, which I know is controversial at some Christian schools. And so kind of brought that back, and now we do a Veterans Day ceremony, and we do a little tribute for 9/11. So I just dabble in different things, show up at parent nights, have dinners for faculty members at my house. You just get engaged in the community that you're in, and that's how you get invested. And I felt like when the days get stressful, or, gosh, I had a coworker that fell ill back in March and was out 3 weeks, and you're in the trenches of it and just hoping that it ends, but you go, okay, but this is for so-and-so, and I know why I'm doing this, and that culture you're a part of and that community just becomes such a part of you, and very grateful for that.
Yeah, you're kind of speaking from the teacher side of things. Something I've heard as well, from so many parents and students, that the real tight-knit fabric of the community is something that is unique to classical Christian schools in many ways. There's something about even the love of great books and the liberal arts, and sort of digging into the past of our Christian heritage together that just kind of keeps weaving people together in ways. I remember David Goodwin, this was years ago, telling a story. He said if you're driving around neighborhoods in America and you see a big pile of bicycles in the front, in the front yard of a home, there's a chance there's a Christian classical school nearby, because that was a kind of American, staple, like neighborhoods, with piles of bicycles out front. But more and more, I think Christian classical schools are kind of preserving that sort of tight-knit community.
Yes.
At the neighborhood level. So the what are some other loves? You've mentioned T.S. Eliot, going back to coming out of high school and college. What are some other and you've mentioned getting tired of Greco-Roman history and preferring now Middle Ages. But what are some other just kind of your own personal interests and loves as a student, as a teacher, things you've encountered, books you've read that just kind of stand out for yourself?
Well, yeah, so I don't dislike the Greco-Roman period. I think there's only so many times that I can read the story of the D'Aulaire's Greek myths, or, go through the story of the world, that I'm a type of person that's more entrepreneurial, and I want to do something new. And so after, 6 years of doing that for third grade, I was like, there's got to be something I could learn about. So as I'm teaching, it's more interesting to me and I can engage with it. And so when I learned that fourth grade was medieval, I thought, there's such a gap in I don't know why I just never really, I must not have paid attention in high school to a lot of the medieval period. And so, Robin Hood and things like that. But I just didn't know a whole lot about that history. And so it's been fun. I've been in fourth grade for 2 years now, and engaging with that curriculum and printing out images and talking about famous paintings and castles is really been fun. This year, I put together a medieval week for my students, and every day of the week we were doing something different. We did icons with Sharpies and markers and gold pens, and the kids did a fantastic job and loved that. They had a market day where they had to create something that they sold, and they dressed up. And so it's fun when I can try a new subject that I'm even learning about and be more inventive, versus if I stick with the same thing for too long, I lose that creative juice to want to make it better or improve it. And I also, you'll find this out listening to my ClassicalU video, I'm kind of a nerd about lesson planning and organization, and I like to create the lesson plan from nothing, and I like to edit it and fix it up and make it nice. And so if I've already got it done, I get kind of bored. But that's just
you need
my
something
bent.
new to create.
Yeah, some people I think would prefer just to have it done and enjoy the piece and move forward. But I think in some ways it's good for teachers to mix it up a little bit and have something new that tests them out. Other things, I love to be out with I have 2 dogs, and I love to be out walking or hanging out with my dogs. And I'm an avid card writer. I actually have one of those like card spinners in my house that my mother-in-law bought me, and I will buy cards from Trader Joe's and the dollar store when I see good ones, and I have them all organized, and I've got a binder with everybody's birthdays and stamps and addresses, and I go through every month and I send out cards, and it's just a special way to connect with people because, in the busy days of our lives, these things can get slipped through the cracks and you can lose connection with people. And, I don't always call my cousins or aunts or uncles all the time, and so making sure I have intentional connection with them at least once a year, or at least at the holidays, is something I value.
Does any of that go back to the calligraphy, or you said, cursive? And is there any connection there? Or?
I love cursive. I lost the ability to do calligraphy. At least I probably need to practice that again. But boy, I remember I don't know if it's that time of your development when your brain is making connection between quotes and ideas. But I was in 7th grade, and our art teacher was doing calligraphy with us, and she would give us all these famous quotes, like not just biblical things, but from famous presidents or people, and we would just sit there and practice calligraphy, and we had to like turn in a certain number of them for credit, and I would be so sucked into quotes, and I became obsessed with like wise quotes and sayings in my 7th and 8th grade year, which helped spiral some ideas as I moved into the humanities. So maybe she all, thought through this, but no, I love cursive. And I do like to play with paint a little bit. I have to be in the mood to do it, but I remember my art teacher telling us that there are people who are passionate about art who do it for a living, or they do it because it's a hobby. And we call those people like famous artists, but really everybody is capable of doing art at different levels. And I didn't really believe that. And she proved to all of us that we could. And we did all sorts of forms of art, from charcoal to watercolor. We did colored pencil drawings. And I have a couple of pieces of art that I did in high school. One was an Edward Hopper painting. I really liked his like nighttime diner scenes. And I did one, and I think it was out of colored pencil, and I still have it somewhere. And I thought, wow, I did that. And my teacher inspired me, and you just do, because someone tells you can do it. You can do it. There is a skill to it. It's all about imitation, and we would study these great artists, and we would do art history, and it was just, it was, and I still really love art today. I decorate my house with impressionist art, and I love going to art museums and gardens and beauty. There was a class at Hillsdale I took. It was a same professor who did T.S. Eliot. She did one on the art of gardening and tying it into literature. And it was fascinating how gardens are designed, like, the Palace of Versailles garden versus Roman gardens, and today's modern American gardens versus British. Like, it was really a cool class. And so I have garden books just to look at and page through and go, oh, maybe one day if I'm rich and famous, I'm going to make a big garden like this,
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, in a couple of podcast episodes ago, I was chatting with Rebecca Richard and asked her favorite books, and she mentioned The Founding Gardeners, which is a book I'd never heard of, but it sounds like something you might enjoy. But it looks at our founding fathers in relationship to their understanding of the land and of gardening. So our founding gardeners. It's actually a British author writing about American founding fathers, which is kind of a fun angle as well. Yeah, well, you're illustrating something that is kind of countercultural and a bold claim that I think classical Christian educators make, and that is that, the fine arts, the common arts, the liberal arts, these are all human goods, and we tend to think in terms of, the sort of science types or math types or artsy people. And one of the things that I think classical Christian education pushes back against a little bit with all of that and says, even though it can be a bit intimidating, and obviously no one has the time in the modern world, particularly, I think, to cultivate all of these things. We all have that kind of capacity to learn and love and explore across many of these boundaries, and the fine arts and the common arts and the liberal arts are really open to all of us. And that can be intimidating, though. I think for new teachers. So you're telling your story, and I wasn't classically educated, but was homeschooled, nerdy, missionary kind of kid, and I think some new teachers in classical schools who maybe don't have some of those elements earlier, in their education, can find it kind of intimidating to create a lesson plan from scratch and kind of dig into history and literature and art all at the same time, and you've got iconography, and you've still got to just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. How do you
balance those things?
Reassure folks, that there's a place to start, and not to be sort of put off or intimidated, if that's your inclination. I mean, I think some new teachers are just going to lean into certain things, very naturally. But for those who are maybe feeling overwhelmed or put off or intimidated in various ways, what are some words of encouragement? I think your course does offer that kind of a hospitality to new teachers.
Well, I would say first thing is you'd be amazed what kids are capable of doing. For example, when I taught third and I was getting a little bored of third grade, I was trying to come up with more projects to interest us, and I realized I didn't know much about the Roman Forum. Mm-hmm. So what I had the kids do, this is like year 5 of teaching third grade, is I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on YouTube. We're going to do one of those walking virtual tours of the Roman Forum. And I printed out a map of the Roman Forum, and we just took the tour. I think it was over 3 days. We virtually toured the Roman Forum. Mm-hmm. I handed them a map. I had this, I wish I could even show you a picture of it. It was so ridiculous. It was like a cardboard thing that I had drawn out with marker and construction paper, the Roman Forum map, and I had used, get this, those little sticky chair pads that you put under a chair so it doesn't scratch the floor?
Yeah, almost like
I bought about 1,000 of those. The kids had really good scissors, and we had brown and white pipe cleaners, and these things were so tiny. We were building like arches with the sticky stool things. We were doing little white sticking things up in the cardboard for the columns. Now, this was a multi-dimensional, intense project, and I thought it's either going to sink or swim. It's these kids are 9 years old, and they all did it. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, and they all knew about the forum. It was actually so cool. I was able to loop with my last class when I moved to 4th grade, and that boy went to the forum last year, and the mom is texting me going, "Oh my gosh, my son is pointing out all the stuff at the Roman Forum that he did with you in 3rd grade." And I'm like, what? This is crazy.
How old is he now? How many years?
He's now going into 6th grade.
Wow.
And it was just so funny that this project I did that I had no idea I was going to go, very cheap, I had a good model and everything, but I just kind of threw it together and it stuck with him. So just remember, it doesn't have to be expensive. Most likely you're working with children that are children. So what do children like to do? They like to craft and do stuff with their hands. So you can't really go wrong. Also, I've learned that the experiences you give them are going to be what they remember at the end of the year. Like every end of the year, I tell the kids, hey, in your little memory books, write down, oh no, it's not their memory books. It's, I have them write a letter to the future fourth graders and I say, tell them everything they can look forward to. Do they talk about the math lessons or the grammar stuff? No, they don't. You know what they talk about? They talk about how I found a local beekeeper who comes in every year. He came in September. For 40 minutes, he's this really old guy, super sweet, who brings honey, talks about bees. And at the time, they seemed really bored listening to him, but they remember that. I had a meteorologist come, this young guy with a tornado machine, and he did like PowerPoints on tornadoes, which again, I thought maybe they were bored with it. They loved it. You just have to kind of get creative and just try it, just play and do something. I had a Messianic Jew who is on the local radio station. He lives here in Carmel, and he has come twice now to come do a short Seder meal with my students and just teach them like the songs from the Seder meal, and they get to eat with it too. And again, it's like a 45-minute thing once a year. No prep on my part. They're usually free. And the kid, this is the stuff they remember. So if you really want them to remember a lesson on fractions or a point in your science book, engage with your community, get outdoors, get some markers. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be crazy. Ask your peers, go to Half Price Books. There's tons of activities online. Just do something. Those are the things that kids remember and engage with, especially in these primary years. And I, like I said, I teach fourth graders or they're 10-year-olds. They love this kind of stuff. So just engage. Here's another example. My science book, we do botany, and we have tons of experiments in there, but they require all sorts of pieces, and I don't always get it together. So when we were studying parts of a flower, I just went to Trader Joe's, and I bought those $3.99 bouquets, gave every kid a flower, and said, all right, rip apart the flowers, play with it, and you have to be able to tell me what all the parts are by the end of the class. And then I have a mini microscope they could take turns looking at it under. I mean, it doesn't have to be very complicated. Just try stuff out, you know? So that was kind of a long answer to your question. But I will say one other thing. When you're starting out your first year, just pick one thing. Like, hey, you know what? I want to focus on history. I want to do one project in the fall. Like once I get my feet wet, maybe like early November, and then I'm going to do something else maybe February, March. Don't do anything April, May. It's too crazy. But just like pick one thing that you want to do to just try for history only, like 2 projects. And then if it works, you save it and you do it again for the next year. So that's just...
So you're adding to your repertoire year after year.
Yeah, exactly.
Of kind of things that you figured out that were affordable and doable. I'm also hearing you say, you play off of your own interests. Hey, I'm curious about the Roman Forum or whatever it might be. You have a kind of curiosity and you play off of that a little. You hear about something in your community that sounds delightful to you and you try to...
I met the beekeeper at a farmer's market, took his card, and he's been coming every year, and the kids love getting honey from him. So...
Yeah. So your course offers, because I hear these kinds of things. I was a principal for 7 years, and I do think that you're backing up to say try one simple thing each semester and avoid the crazy end of the year.
Yes.
Because as a new teacher, I think you need some scaffolding in place. You need the kind of fundamentals down with your students before some of the more creative, adventuresome stuff might really be delightful. But in your course, you provide some of the fundamentals of just getting your self-organized, getting your classroom space set up, lesson planning, and kind of having your own head, and even self-care. You get into kind of going home, turning things off. I think it's both aspects, that kind of creative, give it a try, but also some of the fundamentals. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, and going off of that, these fun things that I do and the headspace I have to do those things. Granted, I've been at the school for a while, so I'm not needing to become, part of the culture and community like someone coming in new. But if you haven't set up your physical space and your routines at the beginning of the year, like if you don't spend all your time on that, then you can't get into the curriculum and have the freedom to do activities and projects that you want to do. So in my course, I talk about how you can set up your physical space, how you can have meaningful procedures and routines so that the kids are able to function well in your physical environment, and for you to have strong relationship with your students so that you're not, if you've got the room set up, if the kids know where to get all their things and they're organized and they know that you love them and want to challenge them, and that, even when they mess up, you're an encouragement to them and it's not just some clip chart, reward system. If you have those things in place and you spend dedicated time the first quarter of the year working on that with a little curriculum, obviously, that's why I say like by November, in your first year, you should be able to have that freedom. But I wouldn't play on those things until you have that nailed down. And nailing that down also requires you having a mentor teacher, which I talk about a lot in the video too, is it's so important that you don't rely on your own knowledge and understanding of things because you're new. Even if you're just new to classical, I would err on the side of asking someone who your mentor should be, or observing for the first few weeks who seems to be having students that respect them and seem like they love their kids. It seems like when I walk by their room, they're doing something lovely and meaningful, and the teacher's been around a while. If all those things are in place, then it's on you to go to that teacher and be like, hey, mentor me, and go to them for anything. And I think that's what my key to success was. For me, it was halfway through my year that I figured out who that teacher was. And it was so eye-opening to me because I was able to throw away the behavior charts and really grow from that. And because I had a mentor teacher. So I really get into that in the videos in detail about all those different things because I think it's essential. And I would add, Jesse, that the order that I had talked about different topics is the order you should think about your year, kind of like these are the things you want to have set up and put in place. Granted, there's something about lesson planning that may come a little earlier too, but really getting your room set up. Like right now it's the summer for me. Number one thing I do is make sure my room is set up for next year now as much as I can. And then I can spend this summer investing in lesson planning or doing these other things that I need to do. So another long-winded answer for you, but that's advice
perfect.
I could give to people that was so helpful for me. So
absolutely, yeah, and I am trying. We are trying to kind of tee people up to know what to expect in your course and what you're offering and the audience you're reaching out to. So that's really helpful. And I am curious about, in addition to you've described a variety of really delightful kind of experiential, hands-on, whole person activities and projects with kids. What are some simple things like, reading out loud, narration that can kind of happen on a day-to-day basis that are staples in your classroom or in the classrooms of mentors, teachers you've seen that I gave, the example of reading out loud. Is that a part of anything like that that's kind of a touch point in your weekly schedule that you would recommend?
Yes, the kids look forward to literature every day because the focus is not just I'm going to read to you and then you're going to sit and do a worksheet with all the questions from the comprehension, and it kind of kills the love of reading. And so I found that for literature, I'm really intentional about just reading to the kids, and as topics come up, pausing and having rich discussions. And we do take days where we go through a plot structure diagram and understand character traits, but really the act of reading out loud every day to the students from quality literature is more transformational than most things you're going to do with them, because they're hearing proper grammar. They're practicing talking about high ideas because they're engaged with characters in the book. For example, we just finished Phantom Tollbooth at the end of fourth grade, and there's a lot of really key ideas in there that are relevant to our world today and how students think about school as they move into those middle school days. And so I think reading aloud is essential. Tying into that, my boss, Mr. Barney, he is a strong advocate for narration. If you know him, that's definitely an understatement.
Jason Barney.
Yeah.
He has a course on the topic. You mentioned that on ClassicalU. Yep, and a book.
Yes, he has, I think, a couple books on it. And obviously, I have learned all about the ways of narration. And I don't always do that for literature, but I would say with history especially, it's been very transformational. When I'm teaching about, say, Joan of Arc, and we've just read about Joan of Arc, having students be able to re-articulate to each other and using the text language is a very valuable skill. It's a great precursor to having larger discussions as you get older. And in fourth grade, third also does this. Third and fourth grade, they go to written narrations. So they're on a more than biweekly. I'd say maybe it's every 3-4 weeks. They write a narration on a topic. So say Joan of Arc was just something that was read, and we had rich discussions about it and practiced oral narration, which is simply put, telling back what you just read in as much detail as you can remember, and especially using the author's language or key names and dates. And so having them be able to do that from memory, written down with proper grammar, is, again, this precursor to this writing ability, and them just being confident with what is in their head and putting it on paper, versus a lot of our modern writing today is about, well, what do you think about that? Which there isn't anything necessarily wrong with that. However, we're trying to train them in proper thinking and proper structure. And so to be modeling that and having them imitate it is better than just coming up with their own ideas. And so they're not even quite mature enough to be able to do that in third and fourth grade. So I definitely use narration. I definitely do read-alouds. I try to engage them with creative, like we're about to start Bob Jones University math program next year, and being able to use different colored pencils in their workbooks to answer questions instead of just their regular pencil, like adding a little bit of fun choice into their day, especially at the age that I teach, can just add to some of that fun relationship with them, that it doesn't always have to be, all right, books open, here we go. All right, get the next class out, books open. I add some variety. I try to remember, too, that my boys are very rowdy and need that energy released. And so we try to get out a couple times a day to get some exercise. In the winter time when we couldn't go outside, because here in Indiana it can get real cold, we would just walk around the school. I'd tell them, we're just going to be silent. We're just going to go on a quick little tour, see what everybody's doing in the building. They loved it. It just took a mental, just like you and I would need a break working all day, like kids need a break. And we need to be able to provide that for them, especially when there's just a really heavy class that they're working on. And the other thing I would add is, when you're planning your day, like I have a general schedule that I follow every single day, and I can't change it a whole lot, but my afternoons tend to be more open-ended to me switching things around. If we have a history lesson that's heavy writing, I'm going to put that after a class that's like creative or more skill-based to give their brain a break and kind of switch back and forth. I'm not going to do like reading heavy classes back to back. If I can scaffold it with like, okay, we're going to do a section in history of reading, and then the next class we're going to switch to grammar, which is very interactive, and they're talking and they're chanting and singing. Oh, and then we're going to go back to reading. So trying to balance your day just like any adult would appreciate, with having that balance. Well, those are just a few things off the top of my head I would suggest.
Yeah. What are some places you've gone to repeatedly for just book recommendations? Do you have you, in your teaching career, have you had much freedom to add, pick and choose some books in the out loud reading? Because you said you do that every day.
For read-alouds?
Yeah, read-aloud
yes.
content.
Well, I would say for read-alouds, it's our literature that I'm reading aloud to them. I don't really have, for the grades that I teach, extra time to be reading aloud to them. I usually try to keep a novel on my shelf that's for substitutes. So if I'm gone, I don't like to miss out on reading the story with them and being behind. So I usually pick something that's a beautiful text that could be easily jumped into and jumped out of for my subs to read. And then the end of the year, I'll throw in a fun one if we finish early. But I would just say, for me, it was our rich literature. So like this year we read Robin Hood, Phantom Tollbooth. We read 2 of the Narnia books, Prince Caspian and... Oh, wait, we read 2 in 3rd grade. We do Magician's Nephew and Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe in 3rd. We did Detectives in Togas in 3rd grade and Mystery of the Roman Ransom. Those were super fun. The kids are huge fans of Shakespeare Stealers. So if you do medieval history and you're currently reading The Door in the Wall, which is a great book. I am not saying it's not a good book, but for 4th graders, it's a lot. I would suggest switching to Shakespeare Stealer because it's a lot about that time period and has valuable lessons on friendship and moral choices. And we also read, I said the Phantom Tollbooth. Yeah. Oh, Alice in Wonderland, Mary Poppins, from the Nixon Files of Miss Basil E. Frankweiler. We study the art museums. That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. But those are mostly all coming from a curriculum list.
It's our literature choices that we made. It's not like necessarily a rote curriculum. It's just we put together a list of great books for each grade level, and once in a while we might change them out depending on, I don't know, we find something better, but we've just kind of come up with that sequence for us.
And that's in your school. There's faculty, some collaborative faculty work.
Yeah, we have a curriculum director, and we have to, if we make any adjustments, we need to go through her to get those approved. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you. The do your dogs ever make it into stories, or do your kids at school ever get to meet any of your dogs? Is there any overlap there?
Well, the pups don't get to come to school because they're not service dogs, and we have some rules with our lease about animals in the building, which is actually okay because someone brought in a tarantula last year, and it was in a container in the 3rd grade classroom, and I walked in there one day and about had a heart attack, and luckily there was a rule that you can't have pets at the school, so he had to go. But no, the pups don't make it in the building, but the kids definitely know about Lewis and Winston, and sometimes I'll tell stories about going on a walk with them and what we see. But yeah, they're if they get, last year Lewis was sick with a bad ear infection for a while, so the kids were all praying for Lewis to be better. It was just real sweet. So
yeah. That's great. So there's that's an opportunity for that kind of a little bit of personal sharing.
It's that relationship, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. You get into parent partnership a little bit in your course. What are some of the kind of invitations or high points that you'd encourage people to listen for?
Well, I'll tell some stories about my failures with parent partnership and how they actually turned into transformational moments for me, where I thought I had royally blundered and God is so good and he decided to redeem it and make it beautiful. But I have just found that if you are proactive with parents and you put your feet in their shoes, I'm not blessed to be a mom at this time of my life, but so I don't have that shared experience with these parents, but I've just learned to think like, hey, if I was a mom and my student's teacher is contacting me every day about all the stuff he's doing that's not good, I wouldn't appreciate that. And if I didn't have a working relationship with that teacher to know, like, how is Johnny doing in math? I haven't heard from you in like 2 months and his report card just came out and I didn't know about it. Like, if I'm not regularly reporting in some way, hey, he's doing really well on this. Hey, you know what? Grammar kind of slipped this week. Figure out what your school's protocol is for communication and what platform you're going to use. It'd be great if your school all use the same thing. We're really working hard to do that for next year so that we all share a platform and program as to how often we communicate and in what way we do so. So having parents be able to see visual representations of what their kids are doing in the classroom is not only going to provide for them an assessment of how their kid is doing in school, but also it's selling them on the classical Christian or classical education that you're doing at your school over years. So some families that end up leaving in middle school, it's because I really think part of the reason is they don't ever get a view or a window into what we do in our classrooms. And if parents could see all that we do and work on with their children and the discussions that we have, even from lower grades, they would never pull their kids out of classical school because they would see how amazing it is. But I think part of that is teachers failing to show them and take those opportunities to feed into their understanding of what we're doing by communicating. It's not just, Johnny threw a ball and hit Susie today and you need to come pick him up, like whatever. Those things do happen, but if you're not investing early on and proactively in positive communication and forming relationships and telling the parents that their child is known, loved, and challenged, that's what we say at CDA, then why would they want to keep their kid at a school that they don't have relationships with the teachers, they don't understand what's happening in the classroom? I think you are really the selling point for that kid staying at the school, truly. And we can't keep everybody, and some kids aren't sometimes a good fit. That it does happen once in a while. But I think that your year will go better if you are honest, you are genuine, you are positive, and you are just, again, making sure kids and parents feel that they are known, they're loved, and they're challenged. And so I get into those stories of how I failed to do that and tips for how I do that in that video and why it's just so important.
That's great. Yeah, those are three great terms: known, loved, and challenged. That's a really great school set of talking points. And you're kind of providing an ongoing, you're opening the door and giving a window into your classroom. It sounds like, that's particular to each parent and child, but continually inviting people to see the day-to-day stuff as a backdrop to, some of the hard conversations that are pretty normal and always have to happen, but then that's not the only thing.
Right.
Parents are getting.
That's what will balance those hard conversations is them remembering, they know my child and they wouldn't be coming to me saying this hard thing, and they'll accept it better if they're like, oh yeah, Mrs. Warman knows my son and she is saying that this is the consequence that needs to happen. And I trust her because I've trusted her from previous conversations that she is telling me the truth. Like, parents are going to fight you if they don't have that relationship with you as well.
Yeah. The classical Christian education has a real spiritual dimension to it and kind of tends to bring us into relationship with more of the Christian, more of Christian history, more of the Christian past. And I know Hillsdale has, a lot of different kind of Christian traditions, in the faculty and student population. How do you guys, have you, in your own school navigated, is there a variety of Christian traditions represented? And do you have any tips or advice for teachers kind of navigating some of that variety that sometimes, even within, sometimes even confessional, Christian school where there's a fairly particular Christian tradition kind of represented, you'll still see a little bit of variety from time to time. What's been your own experience with that?
Well, our school is a Christian school. There isn't a specific denomination that we're associated or affiliated with, which opens the door to a lot of families from a lot of backgrounds. We don't usually align with strong Orthodox, like Eastern Orthodox traditions. Sometimes we do. Sometimes families do feel comfortable with signing our statement of faith. Typically not Catholic. But other than that, we have Presbyterians, Baptists, Apostolic, non-denominational, quite a variety. And really our policy is written out clearly in our handbook about what are the main things that we believe in and that we support, that we've signed on a statement of faith and parents agree to as well and know that this is what we're going to say. And then there are, I guess, what is called secondary doctrines that we choose not to engage deeply into because a lot of those splits occur because of those secondary doctrines. And so I would say those really apply a lot more to upper school than they do for lower school. Yeah, I haven't personally encountered them in my teaching of 3rd and 4th grade. I can see why they could get sticky if you're teaching, especially New Testament with maybe 5th and 6th graders with some of the topics, but I haven't encountered that personally, so I don't have a whole lot on that.
Yeah.
But
And it sounds like your school provides a good bit of just kind of guidance, and it's generally, evangelical American Protestant.
Yes.
Yeah. So some schools have more diversity, and then even things like prayer, can just various types of prayer, singing, worship from a wider range. But so you know your school, engage, respect, kind of how the school frames and leads those things. It sounds like, but it's not quite as much of a diversity on the ground for you guys. From what
we
I'm
have a
hearing.
catechism, and we have a regular chapel service that follows a liturgy, and we try to teach students how to be able to pray out loud and pray with each other, and just modeling that Christian love and care and service of each other from teachers and administration down, so that they can see really what healthy Christian formation looks like.
Are there any other teachers that do the tour of the school? You were talking about, in the context of giving physical activity to some of the boys in your classroom. How do you set that up for the kids? Because it reminds me of some things I've seen other teachers do, but I'm curious how you set it up with your students, and then is it a practice that's that you've seen picked up by other teachers? Or
Fun. I just made it up. Like I said, I just kind of just make stuff up sometimes. And because we had so many indoor recesses and it was getting really challenging, and we unfortunately don't have a large gym space that is shareable all the time. And so I just was like, you know what? We got to get movement. Can you go outside? We got to walk through the building. So I said to them, okay, boys and girls, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go on a little tour of this school. And I bet you would love to know what kindergartners are doing right now. And hey, those big kids in the upper school, let's check out what they're studying and talking about. And I said, but you can't talk because remember, they're in the middle of important lessons. And so we can look with our eyes and listen with our ears, but we're just going to have to be really quiet. And so sometimes, every time we did it, I would take a different route. Sometimes we'd start in upper school and sometimes we'd go in lower school. And I actually really like doing that because it reminds them that sometimes you just get caught in your own space. Like you're working in your own office and you forget there's other people here doing stuff too. And so kind of that oh yeah, all these kids are in school.
I'm a part of something larger than myself.
I am. Yeah. And I think it's good for, again, those middle grade kids, which is where that's my sweet spot. I feel like we tend to lose their desire to even want to continue at our school for the high school because they don't see it. They're not, part of it. And we haven't had a high school for very long, and we have very few students up there right now, though we're growing. We're going to have a graduate next year. But the kids they're not around those classrooms, and they're not around that environment and don't see what's going on. So I can see why they think, when the classrooms are empty, what do they do up there? And so I actually think it was a kind of clever move for me to take them up there, and they got to see the older kids. And it was sweet for me because, having taught 7 years, I'd see some of my old kids and, you
get to say hi.
They don't see me, and I don't see them very often. So it's kind of nice to give them a little wave. And, which is kind of a fun thing I made up.
Would you have any feedback or observation sessions after they get back and, they've been practicing silent observation? Do they get to share anything after you're back in your classroom?
We just kind of would jump back into it. I didn't even think about that, but I do know that they would beg me, can we do another walk? Oh, I called it the walk around.
So they just love the walk around.
They love the walk around.
They're practicing silence on their own part as at the same time as getting literally having an imaginative door opened up for what goes on, after their own grade level. So there's something else in getting that bigger picture. Yeah, I love it. There was a teacher I loved who would do something similar, but it was intentionally an observation exercise. And again, it was silent. It would be all through the school. He would mix up the routes. But then when they got back, there was an intentional kind of sequence of almost like, narration, like telling back things they had observed. And for him, it was actually part of a kind of Christian formation exercise because they were observing the goodness of people made in the image of God. I don't think he was explicit about that up front, but that's where he was trying to go with them. So noticing all the amazing things people can do together, and some of them intentional and kind of structured, and others just surprises. But it was it reminded me a little, of what you're describing. But so many different, I love that you're, I think your course has a lot of kind of structured, prepare ahead of time routines. But at the same time, I'm hearing a really strong thread of try something creative. You see a problem, try to come up with a solution, and just be a little bit daring. Check with your mentor teacher or someone like that, maybe. But don't be shy to try something out. So I love that. Any other? We're nearing the end of our hour here, and but any other questions I should have asked, or things you would love to say as a kind of encouragement to check out your course?
Well, it's 10 sessions, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
They're only about 20 to 30 minutes each. They're very practical. I'm a very practical person. And it will feel at times like you are having a fire hose to the face, and that's okay. Just remember to stick to the essentials and keep it simple. Like, you need to have a room where kids feel comfortable to learn and that you feel comfortable to teach. You are one of the children, one of the people in the room besides the children. Then do you have your lessons and procedures set up so that the classroom moves smoothly? Less stress for you, less stress for the kids. Do you have basic setups of lesson plans? I mean, you're not going to create, masterful work here. You should just have some bare bone, setups of lesson plans, that follow a basic structure that you can edit for years. So you don't need to create mastery work here. And then once you have this basic setup, simple is key. Then you can do these creative things. So just, it feels like a lot, make yourself a checklist, find people who encourage you, take breaks, give yourself some time when you need it, learn when you're burning out and take a break, and just keep it simple, structured, but also allow yourself that freedom after you've got the basics down to be able to just play a little bit. As long as you just make them know that they are known, they're loved, they're challenged, you're working on a strong but firm relationship with them, and you've got your key things always at the forefront, you can just restart every day. Even if you messed up yesterday and like the kids were a nightmare yesterday and you didn't have any structure in your lesson plans, it's okay. You don't have to wait for next month or next year or next week. Just, all right, hey, boys and girls, we're going to reset on this. Just put a smile on your face, reset, get going. It's okay. They're just kids. They don't know any better. So just be encouraged that when you make mistakes, it's okay. And go back to my videos when you need to. And just be encouraged, that you're doing it for the kids. And it'll be okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the fire hose, kind of experience listening to your lectures is real because it's so practical, and I think that's why it kind of piles up. But you're keeping it short. Each of your lessons is very digestible, and you clearly do love checklists because what you're kind of providing is a checklist. Like, just here's the fundamentals. If you've actually done each of these things, you have everything you need to have those fundamentals in place that then begin to allow for the kind of bold, creative ideas and innovation. in the midst of it all. So thanks
Absolutely.
so much. It was great to chat, Kim,
Yeah, you too, Jesse.
really appreciate this course. I'm sure it's going to be a blessing to a lot of folks and look forward to sharing it.
Very wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hope it's a blessing to all.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the ClassicalU podcast. Thank you for tuning in and for following us with our courses, training teachers, parents, school leaders on ClassicalU.com. Our training platform is owned and operated by Classical Academic Press. As listeners, you can purchase any book from Classical Academic Press outside of our digital items, as well as any ClassicalU subscription at our special listener discount of 10% off. Just enter the code CU Podcast, all one word, at the point of purchase to receive this discount on any book or ClassicalU.com subscription. Finally, please also watch for live learning webinars in collaboration with Hillsdale Academy, which offers live online courses for primary and secondary students. Thank you for listening.